The United Nations Global Fund for Education and Emergencies has endorsed and is participating in the 2022 Global Citizen Festival. Participants will call on world leaders at the UN General Assembly to step up and invest $600 million into the future of women and girls. The UN's Education Cannot Wait Fund is demanding closure of the annual $10 billion climate financing shortfall as well. The fund is also calling on world leaders to provide $500 million to help African farmers respond to the global food crisis and provide relief from crushing debts to ending extreme poverty. Music superstars and groups like Metallica and Mariah Carey will perform at the Global Citizen Festival in New York in September. The event will be hosted by the Global Citizen Ambassador Priyanka Chopra, and on the same day in Ghana, marking the 65th anniversary of independence and the 20th anniversary of the African Union. Accra's iconic Black Star Square will see live performances from Usher, SZA, Stormzy, Gayaki, among others. And to talk a little bit more about this, we're joined now by Global Citizens Africa Director Chebet Chikumbu from Accra, Ghana. Very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us. I can see behind you posters of the exciting lineup. So maybe let's just start there. Why two cities at the same time? And tell me how the choices of the people who are going to perform also came about.
Thank you, Tapiso. Good evening to you and good evening to your viewers today. Well, we are extremely excited about the lineup announcement for our 2022 Global Citizen Festival. As you've pointed out, it's going to be taking place in two iconic locations. One right here in Accra, Ghana, and another in New York City, both happening simultaneously on September 24th. And this year's 10th anniversary of our Global Citizen Festival will not only highlight a full decade of impact, working with the world's biggest music artists live from this iconic location, and specifically from a stage in Black Star Square here in Accra, as well as on the Great Lawn in Central Park in New York. It's just a moment to make this event a truly global experience with some of the most popular artists, as you've mentioned. We have Usher, SZA, Stormzy, Jackie, Her, Sarkodie, Stonebwoy, and Thames, and more to come if you stay tuned on our website. So, in terms of your question around the selection, a number of our artists who are activists in their own right have joined us on this journey over the past decade. Here on the continent, we started back in 2018 at the Mandela 100 Festival. We've continued to deepen our relationships with the artist community, and we're really excited to have artists come forward and participate in something so impactful and absolutely epic for our Africa region.
And the impact, as you said, of collaborating with these big stars, let's just start very briefly on this, and then we'll talk about the causes behind it, because I mentioned the fact that you have the ECW that's also partnering with you, pointing out that there are 222 million children this year, or up to this year, who require urgent education attention.
Yes, indeed. And, as they say, charity begins at home. So, first and foremost, we're just so honored to be working alongside and partnering with the government of Ghana, with our Africa patron, Mr. Tsepo Mahlwele, in conjunction with our global partner, Harith General Partners, and other key partners, such as the artist community, our NGO activists who we've spent some time with while here on the ground, our global citizen community, and of course, international agencies for change who have really enabled a lot of the work in implementing, the commitments that are dispersed, and making sure that we're really able to see the actual interventions on the ground. And so if we think about, what Ghana represents for us, it's a symbol of African excellence. It is also a beacon for the West Africa region, the continent, and the whole world. And so there's so many narratives that we want to really intertwine into this campaign and into our build up to the festival that ring true about Ghana, but also ring true about our beautiful continent, a narrative of hope, of prosperity, of opportunity. But really what we want to center in this campaign is a narrative of justice. And that's where, as you've pointed out, we would work alongside ECW to talk about what are those transformative investments that are needed. We know that the most vulnerable population individuals, the most underserved and marginalized right now, as it has been, are girls and women. We need to empower girls now. We need to ensure that we're providing critical investments towards girls' education, sexual health and reproductive rights, and economic empowerment. And over the past 2 years, more than 47 million women and girls have been pushed back into extreme poverty. The pandemic has really taken us back. We've regressed largely in forcing millions of girls out of the classroom and into unpaid care work. So these are areas in which organizations like ECW have really stepped up and stepped in to make sure that they're able to help us support and address this expansion of transformative investments into true interventions with tangible impact on the ground.
I think you have been able as a campaign to combine the glitz, the glam and the substance equally. And as you mentioned, this is a decade on since you've had the campaign running, and you engage various people through your mobilization campaign, donors, the private sector, philanthropic foundations, and high net worth individuals. But that must take some sort of planning and strategizing. Who is going to, align with your brand and the kind of causes that will have the most impact?
Absolutely. And particularly with this campaign, we really centered 4 critical areas. I've just spoken about the fact that firstly, we're doing this for our girls. We're doing this for you and I, Tsepi. So we're doing this for women on the continent, women in developing nations who are really needing to see the change that they deserve and the trajectory that we all hope for in our futures. Secondly, we're doing this to break the systemic barriers to ending extreme poverty. So we need to deploy the financing now. We need to immediately meet the total goal of reallocating $100 billion, in IMF special drawing rights by making up a shortfall of $40 billion. The SDRs are known as a reserve asset that are sitting unutilized or largely unused by the world's wealthiest countries. And what we're saying is they need to be unlocked. We need to provide new and affordable financing relief for countries that are at the highest risk of financial and debt distress. If we think about the low-income countries, that comes to about 69 eligible countries that could stand to benefit from the reallocation of these special drawing rights. So, that's one example or one particular pillar that we really are advocating for through this. Another is around the climate agenda. We are encouraging our global citizens to take action to tackle the climate change and to take climate action now in fulfilling a climate financing gap of $100 billion per year, which was promised in the Paris Agreement. Africa accounts for about 4% of global emissions, yet we are the hardest hit, while making the least impact on our climate and on our planet. So while we are being conscious about defending our planet, what we're saying is that we haven't contributed to the problem as Africans. And so it is unjust that we expect Africa to shift to renewable and clean energy in a way that is not just, without support from the wealthiest countries. So we are asking the industrialized nations who are using fossil fuels for over the past 150 years to really step up and fulfill the promise that they've made, which was meant to be delivered by 2020 in closing a $10 billion shortfall. And then lastly, as you've pointed out, there's this relationship that exists between climate change and the food crisis. And we're asking our global citizen community to take action on mitigating a global food system meltdown now. We're asking our global citizens to get behind calling on world leaders to provide $500 million for Africa's farmers to make the most of the current planting season and fund the local production of fertilizers tools and equipment that they need to produce more food. We would have all seen the impact of droughts and famines across the region. But particularly as a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, we have seen soaring food prices that have impacted fertilizer costs. And the impact of that is a 20% reduction in the food that is being produced around the world. And I mean, that's a direct impact for us when we think about basic needs at that base level. So we're talking about enabling the continent to have enough arable land and enough inputs for that land to be fully utilized to feed the world, let alone its own citizens.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Much, much appreciated. And all the best. Looking forward to cover more on that. Remember, here on The Globe, we have even spoken to some of the winners of the Global Citizens for Change, particularly here in South Africa. So that's the Africa Director of Global Citizens speaking to us about the announcement in terms of the various acts that are going to perform in New York and Accra. Sounds all very exciting, and of course we'll let you know about that. For now, let's take a quick break.